Hello, my name is Joseph DeFeo, and my co-op supervisor is Tony Stamper, the head of the Charlotte Region Department for Co-oping at Messer Construction Co. Today I'll be discussing my position as a project engineer for Messer Construction and how I grew, the experiences, all the things I've learned, and how I've improved in my career path. So let's get started. With Messer Construction Co., I was designated the role as project engineer, and the project is CMS Montclair Elementary. This project could be seen off of Exit 5 at 5801 Farmbrook Drive. The semesters taking place were spring of 2020 and summer of 2020. I was originally there during the summer of 2019, so I have been at CMS Montclair from the start to finish of the project. My team at CMS Montclair is Project Manager David Swartz, Project Engineer Kevin Dietrich, BSG Engineer Vince Robertson. BSG stands for Building Systems Group. What he dealt with was mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems through the building. Then we had a couple superintendents on site, Ron Wagner, which was the main superintendent, Jeff Ross, who dealt with interior and finishes, and then Josh Kalinowski, which was dealing with exterior. So let's keep going. As I stated earlier, I have been at CMS Montclair Elementary from the start of the project to the end of the project, where we had been designated the task to build a new school for CMS. Today I'm going to show you the project phases from the start of April 2019 all the way to the end of September 2020. And in the first photo to the second photo, you'll see that they prepped the ground, changing a baseball field into a construction site. They started to install footers, as well as installing underground MEP systems so they could start pouring concrete. From the second to third photo, they installed concrete pads, installed CMU masonry, as well as installing in-wall MEP systems like in-wall plumbing and in-wall conduit for electrical. From the third photo to the fourth photo, you could see that they started to install brick, more CMU structural steel to make it 2 levels, as well as installing roofing material like TPO. TPO is a material to make sure it's water seal tight, so that way water can't penetrate the building. Above ceiling MEP systems, that way we have HVAC, more electrical and plumbing, and hot and cold water systems, as well as installing interior like paint. From the third photo to the fourth photo, there's a lot that's changed. This is a difference from my summer of 2019 semester to my spring of 2020 semester. Now from my spring semester to my summer semester, going from the fourth photo to the fifth photo you can see a lot has changed. They had finished building the school. You could see that asphalt's been installed, landscape's been installed, exterior concrete. They were testing MEP systems to make sure that all the equipment runs right. And also we're knocking off little punch list items. Punch lists are small deficiencies in the building that need to be corrected to please the owner. So let's keep going to the next slide. During my project engineer co-op, I had a set of daily tasks to perform. I did logs and reports such as job safety analysis, JSAs, where I discussed with subcontractors what their daily tasks were and how they were going to go about it safely. The next thing is daily logs. Now, these daily logs were done through Viewpoint team, recording what subcontractors did on site that day, where, and how many crewmen. This was a great way to back check what work was being done on site if we ever needed the information. Another thing is safety analysis. Messer's greatest goal is safety first. They have 2 protocols that we follow, which is Messer's Safety 5S, which is sort, straighten, shine, standardize, and sustain. Sorting is getting deliveries on time, straighten is organized storage of materials, shine is continuous daily cleanup, standardize is color code delivery process, and sustain is designating staff to clean up after a crew. Another thing is Messer Safety Foresight, which is the prevention of falls being struck by electrical shocks caught in between Job safety analysis usually helps with the prevention of that, as well as filling out forms on permits, and this is to prevent from burns, cuts, falls, etc. Another thing is specs and drawing analysis. Now, I was making sure that the quality of the product that was being installed was installed properly, it was the right material, and it was installed the right way based off of the drawings that the engineer and the architects had drew out. Another thing I dealt with is transmittals. These transmittals explained what was being submitted to CMS. So I handed over keys for all the equipment to CMS during my summer semester after the completion of the project. Inspections would be like REI, which James Wiggins in the photo where the guy's holding the ladder. We would inspect the roof to make sure that TPO was sealed properly, and if there was any issues, I would have roofers come in and install more TPO and correct the issue. Another would be county, and county dealt with making sure we were dried in, we made sure framing was installed properly, and more things of the such there. Now, another thing I dealt with is subcontractor coordination and assistance. A lot of subcontractors had questions on job sites based off of drawings. I would gather with my team to go ahead and coordinate with the architects or engineers based off of questions that subcontractors had. That way in the field we could provide them an answer, that way they could go about their work correctly. Finally, had punch list. During my summer semester of completing the school, we had a lot of deficiencies that needed to be corrected, which is work that needed to be fixed that didn't follow spec or drawing. So we went ahead and got with subcontractors to coordinate this work to get done. So let's continue. When co-oping as CMS Montclair, I impacted the team statistically, and here are a couple of the examples why. Daily logs are things that I recorded in the field as I explained on the previous slide. I recorded logs from January 2nd all the way up to September 3rd, totaling amount of 142,000 hours recorded of subcontracted work, which is an average of 16,000 hours per month. Which this information is vital for the team. That way they can go back and look at the information of what work was being done on site just in case they needed that info. Another thing is punch list. We used Viewpoint Field View, which tracked all the items that needed to be corrected, all the deficiency items that needed to be worked on in the field for subcontractors. With a total of 1,150 items closed, we did a record of 980 items in only 4 months. As you could see, from June to September, we closed items and keeping up with all the items that were popping up. And is a co-op really a co-op if you don't work weekends? With me, I worked 22 Saturdays in my 2 semesters, totaling of 150 hours of OT to help speed up the schedule of the work being done on site. So let's continue on our presentation to the next slide. As a project engineer co-op with Messer Construction, I didn't just grow as an engineer, I grew as a person. I realized that it's vital to improve your digital communication, such as emails, to be clear, efficient, and effective when you're asking your questions, so that way there's no miscommunication or misunderstanding what you're trying to ask. I realized that understanding of the phases of construction is very important, knowing what work needs to come first before you could continue, that way your flow goes right. Organization of assignments is vital because you need to know how to prioritize and keep your work accessible. That way you're staying on top of things. Experience with following codes and spec was something new to me, but following owner's spec in details in codes like ADA, making sure work is correct, it's safe, as well as it's leaving a lasting impact on the owner knowing that we gave them what they asked for. Also, building relationships and networking. With a whole bunch of subcontractors on site, I found it very important because it helped improve the flow of work, understanding their communication. That way, when they do ask a question, you're able to help them. finally, knowledge of construction. I mean, Messer Construction didn't just narrow me on civil engineering, they gave me experience with safety, MEP, exterior work, and interior work. It helps broaden my knowledge. And I feel like Messer has helped as an engineer, made me become the best way I could possibly be. After going over how I grew as an engineer with Messer Construction's Project Engineer Co-op, I have following statements. I will be returning to Messer as a part-time associate, doing an intern, continuing to grow, learn, and become a better engineer on a different job site, during school working part-time. Also that I prefer construction over design because I like being in the field and seeing the work happen instead of being behind a computer screen. I feel like it's vital information and a better way of understanding. I also want to pursue the field of civil engineering of structures now. After being in the field, I realized I really enjoy steel, concrete, masonry, and I like the science behind it. With being in the field, I feel like this co-op gave me some information that I wouldn't have known just through school. I think being in the field, it helped me understand it just a little bit more. I realize a flow schedule is very important when it comes to construction. It helps the progress of the building of the structure. It breaks down area, room, and what contractors are working in those areas during those times. It helps speed up the process. That way people aren't on top of each other, slowing down that. Another thing is the purpose of firewalls. So firewalls are to separate the structure to prevent the spread of fire. And there's different ratings, 1 hour and 2 hour firewalls, and it helps prevent the smoke penetrating into the other sides of the building using a fire caulk. With being in the field, there was about 4 to 5 firewalls in our school, and we had inspections on them. We had subs making sure they were fire caulked, and there was a lot of questions and RFIs being thrown up in the air versus requests for information from the architects and the engineers. And we wanted to make sure that these things were done right, so that way the kids are safe, just in case there was ever a fire in the school. And finally, the importance of safety. With COVID being a huge thing that impacted my past 2 semesters, I realized the safety, making sure people get home safe and not sick, was very important. So preventing the spread of COVID-19 following the CDC protocols was very important, as well as making sure people were doing their work correctly and safely. Making sure people go home safe makes me feel good, and it helps me learn that when you're behind the desk, you don't really think behind those things. When you're out in the field, there's a lot more factors that come into play. Now, this is my new project, CMS Cade South. I was transferred here after the completion of CMS Montclair to continue my knowledge of the building of schools. To end off my poster presentation, as you can see here, that is Ken Brown, who is the project manager of CMS's schools. And I wanted to say that I'm breaking new ground with CMS and Messer Construction Co., leaving a lasting impact and a great relationship with them.